the end of the day, to really get into an organization, the easiest way, the soft belly, is people.
Welcome to the Cyber Insurance News and Information Podcast. I'm the executive editor of Cyber Insurance News, Martin Hinton, and you've all probably heard about human error being one of the primary causes of a cyber breach. Today, we're going to be speaking with Yaniv Kapluto, the Chief Revenue Officer at nuKudo, about another human reality in the cybersecurity space. First of all, Yaniv, welcome. Thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
Very good. Thank you for having me, Martin.
So I know that your pathway to this position now at nuKudo comes through medical device security, and I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your background and come into this moment in your career.
Yeah. So I've been in cybersecurity long before it was called cybersecurity. So I got into it by mistake sometime in the early 90s. I was a practitioner myself, and moved at a certain point to customer facing and revenue roles. That's about it.
So you are solving a problem that exists in cybersecurity that is maybe not the most talked about. Tell me about nuKudo and its origin story and the mission it's on a path to solve or achieve.
Yeah. So we basically, originally our company was founded in Singapore. The reason it was founded is because we had some government contract to help them build cyber centers. And then the next thing that happened is, okay, so now we have the methodology, the tooling, everything is set up and working. How do we stuff it? Right. And we realized that it's hard. It's hard to find the right people for the right roles. A lot of people get a cybersecurity like I did by kind of a mistake. But for a lot of people, it's not really a good fit. It's like, some people see it as some sort of a glamorous role or something that's interesting to do, but you need a specific type of personality and you need grit and other traits that require, and there are different type of roles and you need to know exactly where to go to. So, and the company was founded. Today we have about 400 employees globally. It's a secondment. Some of them are in B2G, so working in different government functions in different places. And some of them are working for businesses. And the way that we do it is we're looking for basically diamond that are rough, right? They have everything that is required, but they're not there. And it's really hard to get into a cybersecurity career because everyone are asking for 3 years experience and things like that. So we find the right people. We identify exactly what type of roles are those customer facing roles like SEs or implementation engineers or things like that. Or is it people that will sit at the SOC or analysts and so on and so forth. We train them for those roles. We give them all the basic training plus all the advanced training and certification. And then we place them in organizations that really fit their personality as well, because it's different to work for a bank to a software company that's developing the new, I don't know, break-in AI solution or cybersecurity solution, or an industrial company or a hospital system. Each one of those require different personalities, even for the same roles, because it's a different cultures, different ways to communicate. We built nuKudo here in the US about 2 years ago. Right now, we're in the process of hiring 50 new additional engineers. About 20 of them will be cybersecurity, and about 30 are going for another gap in the market, which is AI front engineers, people that are actually being able to securely and in the right way help organizations do the transition into AI-driven organizations.
If we could delve a little deeper on this idea that cybersecurity is a culture and alignment problem with sort of perspective. You talked about different types of businesses and different types of industries requiring a different mindset and skill set. When you arrive at a company or you're involved in helping them staff out or improve their cybersecurity personnel or their situation broadly, how quickly do you see whether they're on the right track or what they've got wrong? How quickly can you guys assess that need or where the need lies, and what types of personalities are you looking for those certain roles in certain industries?
Yeah. So we'll separate like the customers themselves, the people that have the need of bringing in, because we're servicing two type of customers basically, right? One is the end customers. Those are businesses or organizations that are minded and to their security risk. They understand that they're at risk. Uh, um, a lot of them are well informed, right? They know what they need, and but they can't find it. They can't find the right people. So that's one side. And naturally, for those that know that they have a problem, we always are there to lend and advise, right? Or to help them build. Like we have, as I said, part of our company is DART, which is an organization that help organizations build their security platforms and our security teams. The second part, which is for me the most important part, is working with people that are looking to get into this market, and they go through, some people will call it an extreme process of filtering. Um, about one or two out of 1,000 candidates will make it in. Um, they go through different types of tests. Those are online tests. They also have a set of interviews. Again, depending to what type of roles they will fit to, or we think that we believe that there'll be different type of interviews for those. And if they pass all of that, they'll get accepted to the program. We will hire them as employees in a 3 years contract. Basically, they have a training contract where they basically, in the first 4 to 6 months, depending on the role, will learn everything that is required to know to be successful in their future roles in cybersecurity. And then they go to real life, 3 years of real life roles in real customer situations. Some of them will spend the same those 3 years in the same customer, moving between roles or just like being promoted through that. We support them through those roles. Through these 3 years, we provide upskilling and coaching throughout those 3 years. And then some of them will move, right? They'll do 6 months in that customer, a year at that, and so on and so forth. So, what basically, when they graduate the program, they have certifications, have actual credentials, like they actually worked in those roles in the market with top companies, so they have really something to be proud of. A lot of times they'll be hired by those companies as well, um, and sometimes if they're really good, we may keep them in the organization if they want. But that's the idea, and it's fun because you basically meet people from all walk of life, and then we have teachers that were really successful, you know, kids, teenagers, and so on and so forth want to make a change in their life. And if they're a good fit, I got to tell you, that's an amazing resource usually because they communicate very well. They're normally well rounded. They know how to keep calm when everything is like a complete mess. We love working with teachers. A lot of people are coming with advanced degrees. Sometimes it's disappointing because we see people that spend 6 years studying specifically software engineering and cybersecurity, and they don't pass the filter because that's a great indication that maybe they picked the wrong thing.
I would
You
say
know?
so. Yeah. I started talking about people in the sort of context of a breach. And one of the things that you said when we were planning this podcast was that you've never seen a breach that didn't involve a person somewhere in the chain. And I wonder if you could unpack that a little bit, and what that means, or how that presents itself in the real world.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's funny because if you ask me that question today, I'm going to tell you that we're going to see agents that are impersonating to people involved in chains or that are taking people's roles involved in that. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we're going to see. So, look, at the end of the day, um, to really get into an organization, the easiest way, the soft belly, if you want, is people, right? Um, I can put a lot of walls, but someone's gonna because we, in order to operate as an organization, we give people access to resources. And if these people can be tricked into letting someone in, if it's by getting their credentials exposed, if it's installing something on their, uh, 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 um, if you allow them to install something on their laptops or credentials, even if they connect their laptops in a non-secure network, right, or their mobile device, and even if it's at home and their kids have something going on, and someone trick them, that will be a great and easy way in. Um, in addition to that, look, devices that are like I'm in a coffee shop, I leave my laptop, on my desk. I go to grab my coffee, it takes 20 seconds, and someone, if I'm at Target, someone can plug something into my laptop. I will never know about it, right? So people are always involved in getting into organizations, and then once you're in, navigating within the organization can involve additional people, can involve other mistakes or things that people didn't pay attention to, and to get to where you need. So I think if we need to, like the best investment, I believe in an organization is to make everyone aware of the risks and provide them with basic understanding and tooling. And if you create a culture that everyone understand and feel that it's important to participate in that game of protecting the company, this is where your organization is probably more secure than everyone else.
You touch on the next point, and it's something that I think a lot of people don't quite appreciate. An enormous number, the vast majority of breaches go unreported, and without that visibility, there can be a false sense of security about the threat. And having everyone across an organization understand they're all gatekeepers to an extent, in a very literal way, even with regard to the company's cybersecurity, is a challenge that seems to be universal, regardless of the size of the company or the location of the company. And one of the realities of the threat that I'm curious what you have to say about is the scale and complexity of the bad actor. The cyber criminal business is highly organized, well funded. I wonder what you might say that might stick with people so that they appreciate the fact that there is a very real and sophisticated adversary here that's trying to take things from you, your company, that if they succeed, is potentially extremely jeopardizing to a company's resilience and existence. And we see some stories because they're made public, but so many that aren't. So I wonder if you could touch on or help the audience understand the true scale of the threat with regards to what they're, why MFA matters, why you don't leave your laptop unattended, why you don't use public Wi-Fi, and a myriad of other things they've probably heard in some seminar that's a box check exercise for insurance policy from a year or two ago that really is, in some respects, a dying reality.
Yeah. So I'll touch the basic for a second, and that's if we're looking at the U.S. market. I moved here many years ago. I've been working in the U.S. market for about 30 years now. If you want to drive people to participate in something or to be a part of something, they need to see a benefit out of it. So if organizations find, and the point is that adversaries are after people and organization, different adversaries, sometimes the same, right? But today, in today's world, we're all a target, right? We don't have to be scared of it. That's the situation, right? But we're all a target. So I think that organizations that help their employees and members um, protect themselves, basically teach them those basics, not only how do you protect the company, but also how do you make sure that people are not stealing your credentials, taking credit on your name. I think so. If we make it a benefit, if they see that, if they take it home and they teach their kids, they go to their parents and their friends and they share that information. If we manage to get that flow, they're going to be aware and they're going to keep on looking at it because they see the personal benefit. So that's the first thing. I think organizations are really, really successful in building such a culture is organizations that understand that people should see it as a benefit and not as a task or something that they have to do, right? Um, and then when it comes to the adversaries, these organizations are businesses. They act like a business. They come in to work in the morning. Sometimes they're 24/7, right? And they have real business plans and they have investments and they make money and they make a lot of money out of that, right? So it's not that thing that we see in the movies like this hacker that is alone and sitting at. No, those are big businesses. Some of them even have very large offices. Some of them are government funded even, right? For like adversarial government, right? Um, there's a lot of money there, and that's the only thing they do. Their job is to exploit other businesses. Their job is to get information. A lot of times, they're guns for hire. People will pay them to do something, to break something, to steal something, to get some type of a result that they are not able to do, and they'll buy it as a service, right? So just like today, when we're subscribing to I don't know, like a streaming service or to I don't know, get some storage somewhere. Similar services are there today. There are businesses that their job is stealing information, breaking things, exposing things, and so on and so forth. And because of that, and because of the fact that there's a lot of money there, everyone are involved. Organized crime, everyone are involved in that, right? So when we look at that, we need to understand the power. They're stronger than any other business because that's the only thing that they do. And with AI now, they're way stronger because they multiply their work by a lot, and they don't care about failing 1,000 times. They care about winning one, right? So it's a different way of thinking.
You the situation you described toward the end there is there's a bit of an asymmetry between the scale and budget of the bad guy versus the good guy. If I'm right about that and I've understood you correctly, that asymmetry creates a situation where there's no really winning in this scenario. There's just persistence and managing loss and being prepared for when things happen that allow you to turn your business back on as soon as possible. That magic word we hear a lot in this space called is resilience, right? The ability to survive the bad knock. And if you can imagine being a professional athlete, injuries are going to occur, and you need to have a protocol around you to manage those sort of weak spots in your system and your business. Am I reading that right? Am I hearing you correctly?
Kind of. I think, look, at the end of the day, like any other business, businesses invest, like when we're talking about the adversaries, right? Uh, Businesses invest more time and effort in places that are easier to reach, that are less challenging. So the idea is that if you are challenging, if you are more complicated, and you need to be a bit more complicated than the value of your data or of your systems, right? Of what it's worth, right? Then they'll move on to the one that is less complicated, right? So I think that even the small investment is going to protect you, you know, is going to provide to your protection, right? Um, at the end of the day, look, I think that if I'm a business, I don't know, of printing photos, right? Or if I'm a hospital or if I'm whatever business that I have, right? I need to focus on my business. I need to hire the right organizations or people or that will help me protect my business in a budget that fits the risk, right? And I definitely recommend also insuring that risk as well, right? So um, and then the adversaries are going to go to the ones that are not well protected, right? That are an easier, low hanging fruit, basically, right? Now, if what you have is pure gold, if, for example, you are, I don't know, a financial organization, family office, or whatever that is running billions of dollars, right, for your customers or whatever it is, right? Yes, I will spend more on insurance and I'll spend way more on having the right teams protecting my business, right? If I'm a lemonade stand, probably less, you know?
Yeah, 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 certainly. Well, so you touch on something there that I think is a bit abstract, and that's the idea that there's a real economy around stolen data, and obviously this ties heavily into cyber insurance claims and litigation that can come after. I wonder if you might walk me through how stolen data becomes valuable, and why that's a bit counterintuitive for people, and helping people understand why protecting that data then becomes important if it has, to your point, value. And obviously there's a difference, right? If you're running a certain kind of business, the value of the information is going to be less, but it can vary a great deal. Talk to me about that reality and how the data is monetized.
And first is the value chain of data, and the value of the data can be different to different people. Some people will just look for passwords, emails, and things like that, and that's something that is almost a commodity today. It's just being sold. It's easy to get, and it's a lot of records. They're not expensive. Some can be corporate as espionage or other types of espionage, where there are research and formulas and other trade secrets that people would like to put their hands on it. Uh, um, and that can be very, very valuable for a very small group of people, right? Sometimes it's not about the data, it's about disruption. It's about locking you out of your data. And to gain access to it, you'll have to pay some ransom. A lot of times, not necessarily you'll get your data back after you pay that ransom. That's another problem, right? So, um, disrupting the business is a big problem, right? And people in insurance will pay a lot, right? So now, once someone managed to get their hand on something, right? It can be, PII, it can be PCI related, like financial information, credit card information, whatever it is. Um, they don't just have to monetize it immediately. They can use it along a longer term. They can use it in order to, like, passwords or things like that. They can use it in a longer game and to gain additional access to other places and other organizations. That's why, for example, it's important to include our employees in that awareness and educate them on the risk. Because a lot of time it will start in a personal asset, but that employee is using the same password right now for his, I don't know, personal email, to the password that he's using to log in to, the company assets, right? Or things like that. So at the end of the day, um, data have value and it have long lasting value.
When we were planning this podcast, you used the phrase "data is the new oil," but unlike oil, there's a renewable nature to it. That's kind of what you're describing now, this idea that there is a prolonged value to this stuff, and the iteration or the iterative value can go on and on. And in the cyber claims reality of this, that creates a very, and the phrase long tail comes in here, long tail of liability and cost that can be associated with the data breach. I wonder if you
Yeah.
might dive into that from the cyber insurance point of view, and sort of lay that out. You had mentioned some European insurers in the healthcare space and that sort of thing. Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
So, first, I wish there was more cost to allowing data being stolen, right? So I wish that there was more cost to, from a regulatory perspective, to organizations. I think sometimes, um, for different reasons, the personas that are actually getting hurt are not protected, as they should be, right? So that's one thing. The second thing, I think the biggest cost for organizations today is reputation. It's about trust. We all informed already that this is a problem, right? Everybody, no matter where they are, right? So I think organizations want to show that they're secure. That's one of the reasons, by the way, that they hide those breaches and they try to close them, when it doesn't hit the public, which is another problem. I think that's something that, again, regulators need to address, right? Um, and then at the end of the day, if you're being hit by a ransomware or if your business is disrupted, um, the cost that of that specific breach, if it wasn't caught in time, is way bigger than what the adversary made out of it. A good example, like I'll give you like an example that is not in data, but makes a good idea of that is um, there was the Trans-Siberian train many years ago. They had um, those they're very expensive, they're like heavy copper doors for the train. So copper is expensive, but people would actually steal the doors while the train was running. They'll screw them out and they'll drop them. And they can make, I don't know, back then I think they could have made $500 or something like that for every door, right? The cost of replacing the door was like $10,000 to the company, right? And that's the same for data, right? So the cost of fixing the problem or getting your business up to speed, fixing your reputation, everything is long lasting. It's something that you'll have to do additional investments and so on and so forth. So this is one. Imagine that if I'm in a hospital, for example, and someone managed to get access to my network and shuts down my imaging system, there can be no procedures. That's it. I just locked that hospital from being able to operate. That can be millions of dollars. Insurance have a problem, right? Cyber insurance have a problem insuring that, right? So yeah, when I touched on the European ones, it's like several years ago when I was working at that market, I was shocked working with insurance to learn that 70% of European hospitals are not insurable. There is no way to calculate the risk, the cyber risk that they have. They cannot insure it, right? They can calculate malpractice risk. They can calculate things that they have data on and things that there are practices and tools to make sure that they operate and, and, uh, and policies. Most of those organizations don't have the right security, cybersecurity culture, cybersecurity tools, cybersecurity setup to protect themselves. And I don't think that I don't think that the situation is different here. By the way, in the U.S.
Well, I mean, again, we're overwhelmed with healthcare breach information because of the reporting requirement. But I think you're probably spot on. I want put a pin in that because I want to come back to this. But before we move on past the data point, one of the things that we discussed was the idea that even encrypted data stolen now or stolen in the past that can't be broken into a few years from now, if the promise of quantum computing comes to fruition, that changes everything. And then you have this whole new bucket of data that has value that becomes a vulnerability for a company, perhaps years after the breach. I wonder if you might, if you will, double click on that idea and how there is the potential for this looming additional layer of liability and costs, and whether that's financial or reputational, all of that affecting the bottom line, how that might play out in your mind.
Yeah. First, I don't think there's a question if it's going to come. It's coming. It's already here, and it's just going to be more affordable very, very quickly. If we learned is that our estimations are usually miss things by tenfold. So usually it's faster, 10 times faster than we think. So I think it's there. I think that government funded adversaries already have some access to some of this. Um, and at the end of the day, encrypting data, and we'll find other ways of dealing with that. But at the end of the day, um, a lot of organizations were basing their solutions on encrypting things, and that may not be a solution. Now, even today, if I'm operating in an encrypted network, I can still decipher based on the patterns on the network, what am I looking at? And I can still exploit it, right? So, um, providing to that quantum computing that can actually, you know, read what's reading there, decipher it pretty quickly, or finding the right passwords because of the fact that they can do way more, way faster iteration. Then, so yes, I think that we will need to do retooling. I'm working in this industry for many years, and I'm surrounded by amazing people all the time. I meet amazing entrepreneurs that find great ways to protect ourselves. So for every problem that we're going to have a solution. The point is that we need to be minded, right? And it's never a single solution. There's always like a set of tools that we will need to implement. I think right now we'd be more concerned with implementing AI wrong, with the lack of visibility to what AI is doing within our organizations today, who's using it, how they're using it, what kind of information, even the simplest stuff. Even typing in a simple query or taking a mail that is supposed to go out to shareholders and holds information that should not be released in, let's say, next, you know, 10 days or 30 days and put it in AI. I don't know where that's going, right? If I want to take some records, put them in a nice Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to have, I don't know, any of those AI tools that are available for everyone today to do it for me. And that Excel spreadsheet holds confidential information. I don't know where it's going, and people need to put policies on it. And I've seen amazing solutions, by the way. Some of our customers are developing some of those solutions. And I'm actually shocked to see how they worked around that, because a lot of the systems today also were built before Gen AI. So they don't have the ability to have those controls around them. And I've seen solutions that will basically go over that and make sure, or to look at the traffic and filter it or make manipulations and identify. So that's amazing. We're very far though from even understanding the risk.
The the phrase visibility gap with regard to AI and liability, and whether it's just a purely security perspective or if you start to fold in the insurability of it all, is I like words, and I feel like it undersells the dilemma. It's more of a gulf than a gap. I think there's a there's a real there's a real concern there, and again, it touches, like you just did, on the human element, right? People using it, the phrase shadow AI, meaning that employees are using AI outside of company parameters and using, if you will, unsecure AI that is, you know, on a personal device or a personal log on it. The myriad of issues that we've opened up, to combine with the myriad of solutions, I suppose, is significant. So I want to come back to the 70% of the study from a couple of years ago. 70% of hospitals in Europe are uninsurable. Again, keeping with the personal side of this, the human side of it, there was a story you told about visiting your son in the hospital where you realized this. And I wonder if you might use that as a way to explain to people who are familiar with healthcare environments or healthcare institutions. And by that, I mean hospitals or doctors' offices. There are an enormous number of devices and connected devices. And tell me about that reality and the sort of, the entry points or the attack vectors that exist in a medical facility.
Oh, it's everywhere, and it starts at the door. It starts at the parking lot, right? So, like with my son, when I walked in with him, he had a little accident, needed to do a procedure, right? At first, there was a laptop next to us that allowed the doctor or the medical staff to get information. That laptop was a good day, I don't know, maybe $500 when it was new, right? But it was locked in like a metal cage, right? Because we're protecting that asset. Its USB ports were open, and there were like, port replicators connected to them, and nobody really knows what's connected to those port replicators. And it would take me exactly 10 seconds to compromise that device, right? Um, and it was funny because even like there was like movable drapes kind of thing, so we can get some privacy, right? Those actually had RAFID, devices on them to make sure that nobody walks away and that they'll know exactly where those are within the hospital, right? But the network was not segmented, and it was easy to, uh, 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 to see open ports everywhere, and it was easy to see that specifically that hospital was not well protected. Now it starts at the door because it's a cultural thing, right? So they had security, and they had security cameras. And again, I was playing around, not just to see, because it was interesting, right? but I think I found like 10 or 15 ways to hack. My wife stopped me at a certain point, but to get access into the hospital, and it didn't take time. And I'm not an expert, right? So someone that is really smart and is an expert can do damage if they want to, right? And it's even with the simple things, right? Again, it starts with people. You know, the understanding of what you can connect to the clinical network, right? And what you can connect to, um, I don't know, public network or employee networks and so on and so forth. You see more and more hospitals today implement more and more advanced technologies around that. A couple of years ago, this was like completely open. I haven't looked at it right now, but and then the devices themselves, a lot of them were designed like 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Even those that were designed 3 years ago are having a problem now because we're running really, really fast. A lot of them don't have standard protocols. They're like, I think 50 or 60 different protocols today in every hospital because different devices are talking differently to a different network and everything. A lot of those devices are running Windows ME, Windows 98, all kind of things like that that you won't even believe exist still, right? But this and to be frank, the hospital want to keep on moving. They need that operation. They need to move patients in and out from the hospital. That's the name of the business, right? And they need to do it quickly and efficiently, right? So nobody have time to shut down systems and update them. Nobody have time to deal with vulnerabilities. And good hospitals with good teams will find a way to squeeze it in. But it is for them another interruption.
Are there, if you're an underwriter looking at a hospital or a medical, environment, are there two or three things that are, high on the priority list in your mindset that you would want to be able to, you know, know about and use to analyze the risk right off the top?
First thing for specifically for hospital, I'll send someone in. I'll send someone to just to see how easy it is to get in, how easy it is to find yourself alone in a room or next to a network port, and how easy it is to compromise devices there. It really takes like a very short visit by someone to understand. So that's one. Second, I I think that the human element, like what do you do in order to make your the people in the hospital aware and how involved they are in the process. That's before I even start, right? Um, Afterwards, I look at policies, protocols, tooling, and so on and so forth, service providers that they're using. Um, Again, hospitals are really complicated because they have a lot of third parties. So, what do they do to manage the third party risk, right? They have vendors that are coming in, they have people that are connected to the network. So, what do they do with that? Um, but yeah, specifically for hospitals, I would definitely send someone in. Also for factories, right? Everyone that have devices that are not just you know convenience, right? That like things that are like OT, IoT, and things like that.
Well, I mean, you touch on a reality that hospitals have to be in operation, right? That's their whole role. The word operation I don't use, pun not intended, but
Yeah,
this idea that they are, I mean, we're all familiar with the photographs of ships at sea and people hanging out the side, painting them and maintaining them because they're not near a port. This is a complex reality, and I wonder whether or not you might use that as a launching point into another topic we discussed prior to this. That there's still a disconnect at, say, the C-suite level between the IT department and cybersecurity, and that there is a distinction between the two and a need to look at them and budget and hire, create a different mindset and sort of approach to them. How could you explain that difference to a CEO who thinks that they're the same thing?
yeah. So first of all, I'll. This is a good example. I can talk about nuKudo for a second on this, right? So when we look at a part of our filter is when someone is coming in, they may have passed all of the exams, like flying colors. Everything is great, right? They're top of the class, right? And then we have a short conversation, and they cannot take something that is technical and translate it into a simple, a person in the street kind of thing or an executive in the office language. If they can't do that, maybe they're not a good fit, right? So the idea is that if I'm looking first on the teams themselves, I think the burden on these teams and definitely on their management is to find good ways to help them communicate risks, exposures, and things like that to management in an effective way. And we it's a part of our training, for example. It's an important part of the training, right? So that's one. But um, the idea is at the end of the day, a lot of the executives were, especially in like hospitals or are practitioners that we're doing all of that. IT people are there to make sure that people have access to data. They have there's some idea about um, cybersecurity because they're trained them, they're trained employees. They have IT training and education. So naturally, cybersecurity is a part of it, right? But their job is to keep access open, not to close it, not to lock it. Like if if they could say, hey, someone else is protected, is a bubble around me, everything will be open, right? Because that's the easiest way, right? So that's one. So that's their way of thinking. The people that like the clinical engineers or medical device engineers or OT, IoT, people that are in the field supporting those devices, again, their job is to keep them running. It's not to protect them. They don't even understand that language of protection, right? Um, so that's another team. They have a different way of thinking. And then cybersecurity, if they could lock everyone out, the data is locked, right? So let's just lock it, right? So the idea is that everyone are pulling different directions, and if these teams are working very well together, let's start with that basic thing. That's the right way. You need to create that type of an environment, right? And again, coming back to all employees, they're a part of that game as well because they are at the end of the day also agents of that cybersecurity organizations. Um, now communicate that to management, that's task that's a hard task, right? And this is where professional CISOs are in, and this is where professional CISOs bring experts in, right? But it's also can be a simple conversation between an employee that is in the cybersecurity team to an executive that they made in the lunchroom or in the break room or somewhere, right? And it's a part of the awareness program that is implemented within this organization, right? It should teach risk to executives, right? So nobody is surprised. I did see organizations, I think I see them less and less, but in a past decade, I did see organizations that they didn't want to know. Executives did not want to know, right? As a way of saying, oh, I didn't know, right? So you could see that. You could see people that will just walk out of the room when it started to be too detailed, not because they couldn't understand the concept, because they would rather not understand the risk. you know. Um,
From an insurance point of view, and maybe you could speak to the people who are listening that are in that insurance world. If you're looking at a company and you're trying to discern whether or not they're prepared for this, staffing it properly and budgeting it properly, what are things that indicate that they understand the distinction, even if maybe they're not practitioners of what you need to be in order to exercise the distinction? Is there anything that someone might say, or a telltale or a canary in a coal mine for people listening in the insurance world, that a company needs some help sort of basically even understanding the distinction between the IT and the cybersecurity roles?
yeah. So first, I think I have a lot of friends in the cyber insurance market, and I got to tell, this is probably one of the more exciting uh, uh, um, markets that are going through an amazing technology revolution the last decade. And so all of them are like really talented and smart. I actually go to them to learn more a lot of times. So this is one I think, and they also have a problem because this market, because it's like that, and it's getting more and more advanced. Um, their competitiveness a lot of times is also dependent on how fast they can quote. So if they can calculate your risk quickly and give you a quote quicker, and if they understand your risk better than the other one, and they can understand that they can give you a better premium because or higher coverage because they know that you're actually more protected. So there's less uh, um sorry there's less um open questions on that. I think so. That's where they stand right now. I, I do think that in some type of organizations they need to send someone. I do think that it's a great if I want to understand the risk, it's great to have a discussion with an executive or a manager within the organization, have a discussion with an employee, something simple. And like, what do they understand? What's an exposure? Explain to me like basic things, right? Are you reusing the same password in different places, right? It's a simple giveaway, right? Or anyone told you that you should use MFA? Do you know what MFA is, right? So um, I think that at the end of the day, even so they're using a lot of questionnaires they're using different ways to evaluate in high risk ones. They actually see teams, right? Um, I don't know if there's like a dead giveaway, but I can tell you, like walking into the building, you know how secure this organization
Well,
is.
I mean, the 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 thing that jumped out at me when you were talking just now is the idea that some of the questions you might ask for people in this space are the most basic of questions, things that you would think the answer would be yes, like, do you use MFA? Do you use the same password across, say, your Netflix logon and your email logon? There's a report out today. I've only just glanced at the press release, and it's about passwords and how many of them contain some variation with Messi or Ronaldo as the two footballers' names in there, right? Like there is this consistency, and again, it's back to the human side of this sort of thing. Um, those sorts of things, that reality that there's a real I mean, I don't want to be sort of insulting, but the bar is quite low in a lot of these organizations. And what that means from an improvement point of view is that there are some very basic things you can do to help people understand the problem and also improve their security. Do I have that
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. Look, if I go to an organization, they have a zero trust implemented across their system, and they know what that is. you know, Good. I know they know what they're doing. There's someone there that is running that specific part of the business well, right? Most
Yeah.
of them don't know what it means, right? But I'm seeing even the simplest questions a lot of times can reveal that there is a gap. You don't need to know all of the gap. All you need to know that there's a gap. Now, the question is, how do I help you bridge it? Because I do want you as my policy holder. I want your business, right? So, and then that's where I think I see a lot of cyber insurers advance. All of them are partnering with technologies, building technologies, building platforms, providing those platforms to their customers, providing services on top of them. So I've seen some of them partnering or actually buying or building their own like MSSP type of an organization. So I think that's why it's exciting. I think that um, for many years in insurance and cybersecurity, we're kind of competing on the same wallet share. Today, they're working together, and I also see, cyber organizations that are providing warranties in the last several years, right? Let's say, okay, we'll cover if you got a breach, we'll take care of the disaster recovery, we'll take off the incident response, we'll help with you with dealing with it, right?
It's an aside, and I'll step out my editorial side. But I agree with you. I've been doing this reporting now, and I've met a great many people in this space on the cybersecurity and the insurance side over the last couple of years as I've been in this role. And there is a real, I don't know, energy about it, an enthusiasm, a sort of idea that they see a real problem, and fixing that problem does two brilliant things. It makes, countries more resilient, industries more resilient, the businesses more resilient, thus protecting employees and their families and the incomes earned to pay mortgages and college tuitions. And it does exist there that I think it exists in a lot of businesses, but it's just interesting to have experienced that and come to see it in a business with the word insurance in it, which you would not generally associate with a sort of a really forward tilting kind of, enthusiasm about solving a big problem and, with a lot of work to do. So I just wanted to second that idea that there is this really pleasant energy and, there's almost there's a sort of cliche now that people are, it's against the rules and norms of society to be too enthusiastic about things, and there's a real enthusiasm among a lot of the people I deal with that exists in this space, which kind of brings me to the next topic, and it's sort of, you touched on it a little bit, nuKudo's kind of model in the talent crisis in this world with regard to cyber insurance, and that there's a gap in the role. And I just want to, I know you've done this, but just separate out sort of the model that nuKudo has to address this, if you will, workforce gap. Is that the right word or right phrase rather?
Yeah, we do. We do. People call it in some roles. It's like forward deployment engineers when it comes to like engineering type of roles, and staff augmentation is something that comes out a lot. But usually, companies are used to pay a lot of money for these roles. We made sure that our business models support businesses and actually provide them savings even than just going out and hiring. And in military organizations, they call it secondment, right? So basically, you place someone for a specific role in a specific time, and that's their expertise, right? So, so that's what we do. And by the way, enthusiasm is, and if anyone that is looking at our program and trying to join it, we look for enthusiasm. We look people that are like extremely enthusiastic about pen testing, about solving puzzles, about understanding risks, right? You have to do, because you're not going to be able to survive that market for a long time if you don't have it. You got to be a bit crazy about the subject, right? And enjoy it every day. Wake up and hey, because it's hard. There's a lot of hard work. It's like 95 to 99% of hard work.
Yeah.
So this is one. What we do is we basically identify these people and see that they really want to do it, and we help them get there to the point that they, after 3 years, they're just rock stars, right? And we're looking for things that normal employers will usually not gonna look at, right?
If
Um,
you're with regard to the staffing role, we hear a lot about tools and technology in the security space. If you're underwriting a company or you're looking to underwrite some risk at a company, how much more focus should be paid to the composition of the human security team? The people who are making sure things, to your point, are updated and policies are adhered to, and staff is trained in a way that's effective. That there is a real sort of, there's a consistency to this. There's a persistence to it. Cybersecurity is a perishable reality given the nature of the threat and how dynamic the change is. AI coming along lately being the sort of 800-pound gorilla in the room. How important is looking at the non-technical parts of cybersecurity within an organization if you're looking to underwrite the risk?
I don't know if they have the access, right? But if they do, it's great, right? Because if you can see a team that is spending time, 30%, 20% of their time learning new things, I know that this organization for in the long term is going to be well protected, right? If I see an organization that is understaffed and their people right now are dealing with 50 more cases that they need to that they're able to do, right? And they support more endpoints, and then I'll be concerned, right? And actually that's a sad reality today, right? Because it's human to say, hey, this is just risk. I'm focused on creating value. um, I think some organizations figured out that being secured is creating value for them, right? So I think if I have access to the team, and if I see that, like the most important thing is that this team is doing reskilling and upskilling all the time, right? That it's a part of their targets, then I'll be comfortable with that team, and I'll say, hey, that's what that organization understands what it takes. Because the adversaries we talked about, they learn new things every day. They experiment on new things every day. So we can't do that, but we can, if we, you know, give our employees or actually task them to learn more, maybe 20% of their time, then we're probably going to be more protected than the guy next to us, which is, again, probably the better way of doing it.
Yeah, I would say so. So, stepping back and looking at the big picture, one of the things that we discussed in planning this podcast was the idea that for all we've done and for all the change that's occurred in the way businesses operate and the information age, going back to say the beginning of the internet and .com, there's a true reality to the fact that we're still at the very dawn of the technical age or the information age or whatever you might want to call it. And in some respects, there's an analogous sort of to the industrial age where it's amazing what's happened, but wait to see what's coming. You had used in the context of the risk in the cyber world the arson analogy with regard to insurance, and I wonder whether you might sort of step back and go up to 30,000 feet and paint a picture of where we are now and the landscape into the future, to the degree any of us can predict the future. What's coming? What's ahead? What ahead of us in this space?
The one thing that I can promise you is that everything is going to change. You know, you touched the industrial revolution, right? So if we look at systems that haven't changed, the education system, schools are still looking like factories. Kids are still standing in front of a single manager, teacher in front of all of them, right? So some organizations, and to be frank, schools are not doing very well, right? Unfortunately, right, we don't cope with how kids. Some of them do finally, but right. So I think everything is going to change. We need to change, right? I think that what we see right now is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the benefits of AI, but also the risk that AI is going to pose on our organizations. Um, Most of the people I talk with say that we don't even start it. We can't, we know that there are risks there, but we don't know what they are yet, right? Or we can identify or estimate some of them, right? So, but also, but everyone understands that there are great benefits there, right? And people starting to understand that there are also great costs to do it, right? So if I'm looking at that, I think we're again, yet again, in another great and amazing revolution right now. I'm not even touching quantum computing, and that is going to take research and I was like to in completely other places. I've seen some crazy stuff that are not specifically in like the silica type of like the chipping or the computers and these type of devices, but actually technology that is already stepping in into other things, right? That is going to be interesting, right? And like synthetic biology and how that is going to play a role in all of that. So there's so many exciting things uh, um, that are happening, and with that will come risk, and we will need people that will be informed on how to protect ourselves.
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think when we spoke earlier, that the example I used was the car and the way that the automobile has had technology introduced to the device over the decades that, or more than the decades, I guess, that it's existed, that have made it safer. And that, while seatbelts came along and then things like airbags and multiple airbags and the technology around lane avoidance. And now you look at the idea of, automated driving, creating safer cars that, you know, could be networked so that they know where each other's are, and you take the human risk out of it. Is you think that's a fair analogy? The idea that someone who was buying a Model T Ford couldn't have imagined, the Volvo airbag or the 3-point harness being something that was A, necessary, or B, even possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the f- you know what? It's funny. I live not far away from a car museum, and I remember like I don't know, 15 years ago, first time we visited there, um, and I was walking around and I discovered something that I didn't know before. I felt ignorant. There were electric cars when the idea of cars started. It wasn't efficient. It didn't work. It wasn't, but there were cars that were driven, that were being pushed by electricity and not by gasoline, right? So, and when we were kids, we were looking at the Star Trek and other, sci-fi movies and TV series. These guys were holding tablets, all right? long before Steve Jobs introduced us to those, right? So I think, yeah, it's exciting to see what's going to happen. I'm really excited about that.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. Art, science fiction, literature is full of
Oh,
examples of people imagining things, decades or even centuries before they were technologically possible or actually existed in the real world. And I agree with you in this context. That's something to keep in mind that just because you can't figure out how to make it yet doesn't mean you shouldn't, be able to imagine its reality. And I guess the great examples are things like Da Vinci and his basic design for a helicopter that
yeah,
didn't have a power source, right? So how does that going to, how would you actually create the energy to your point about electricity and cars? It came
yeah,
before the so yeah. Now, so we've been talking about an hour. Any final thoughts for CISOs or risk managers or insurers in the audience, or anything else you want to touch
yeah.
on before we?
I'll have to. By the way, and with Da Vinci, I will say Jules Verne, Asimov. It's like a long list, right? Yeah. Look, I think the first one is, and it's actually the education part, right? So if there's any educators or uh, uh, just people with kids, I think the most important skill that we need to teach them today is how to ask the right questions. It's hard. Think about it, right? It's not just how to ask questions, how to ask the right questions, how to be curious and inquisitive. I think, and the same goes for our employees, right? We need to challenge because everything is moving so fast, everything is changing so fast, and actually, the secret of utilizing this amazing AI tooling that we have right now is based on how I ask questions as well, right? So that's one thing. I think when I'm looking at CISOs or executives in an organization, make sure that first all of your employees are well informed, but also um, that your IT teams and technical teams work together as a single organism, that they feed one each other, that they help one each other, and that they understand the problems of one each other. So you develop a culture of uh, uh, cooperation with these teams. I would even have them, you know, maybe intern or work a bit at the other person's shoe or do, role plays or others. Um, this is going to be do magic. And right now, when we're looking at all the organizations that are do transition to AI technologies and including AIs in their solutions in their day-to-day operation uh, um, for multiple needs, I would say include your security team, include your GRC team, include your IT team in those decisions. Make sure that they are well informed. Invest in their education. Bring some experts that can help you out because it, it, it's changing so fast. And if you think that you can learn something today and it will be good for, in 6 months, it's obsolete. Everything's changing. You know?
Well, yeah, well said, well said. I think that idea of collaboration and that the lowest person on the totem pole, if you will, might be able to see things in a way that protects your company or creates a more secure environment is something to keep in mind because
And value, right? That
yeah,
person can also see value where we don't see it today.
yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Anything else?
No, thank you so much for having me, Martin.
Oh,
Every time we talk, it's different. So
it's been my pleasure, Yaniv. I really enjoyed it. Yaniv Kapluto, the Chief Revenue Officer at nuKudo. There's a ton of stuff we've referenced. So in the show notes, there'll be links to various things, places to find Yaniv and nuKudo. Again, Yaniv, thank you so very much. Everyone else watching, thank you so much for watching. My name is Martin Hinton. I'm the Executive Editor of Cyber Insurance News and Information. Again, thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.